Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, our thanks is not my number of pranams. And to those who are most worshipful, Sri Gurudev, Nitya Lila Prabhupada Om Shripas Shrimad Bhaktivinoda Narayan Krishna Shri Guru Maharaj Gauranga Guru Varga So continue with our daily vow reading in Srimad Bhagavatam. We are reading from the first canto, second chapter. Now the 30th verse. Saevedam sasarajadre bhagavan atmamalaya sadhasarvipaya chasam gunamaya gunovidho. Translation. In the beginning of the material creation, the absolute personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, in his transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy. Report by his divine grace, Srimad A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada. The position of the Lord is always transcendental because the causal and effectual energies required for the creation of the material world were also created by him. He is unaffected, therefore, by the qualities of the material modes. His existence, form, activities, and paraphernalia all existed before the material creation. He is all spiritual and has nothing to do with the qualities of the material world, which are qualitatively distinct from the spiritual qualities of the Lord. Text 31. Taya vilasiteshu ateshu guneshu gunavan eva anta pravishta abhati vijnanena vijnanena. Translation. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Purport. The living entities are separated parts and parcels of the Lord, and the conditioned living entities who are unfit for the spiritual kingdom are strewn within the material world to enjoy matter to the fullest extent. As Paramatma and eternal friend of the living entities, the Lord, by one of his plenary portions, accompanies the living entities to guide them in their material enjoyment and to become witness to all activities. While the living entities enjoy the material conditions, the Lord maintains his transcendental position without being affected by the material atmosphere. In the Vedic literatures of the Shruti, it is said that there are two birds in one tree. One of them is eating the fruit of the tree, while the other is witnessing the actions. The witness is the Lord, and the fruit eater is the living entity. The fruit eater, or the living entity, has forgotten his real identity and is overwhelmed in the fruitive activities of the material conditions. But the Lord, Paramatma, is always full in transcendental knowledge. That is the difference between the super soul and the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, the living entity, is controlled by the laws of nature, while the Paramatma, or the super soul, is the controller of the material energy. Text 32. Yadhaya Mahidro Mahir Darvishvika Swayomishu Nameva Bhati Swatma Bhutesho Chatatapuma. Translation. The Lord, as super soul, pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood, and so he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute one without a second. Fourth, Lord Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by one of his plenary parts, expands himself all over the material world, and his existence can be perceived even within the atomic energy. Matter, antimatter, proton, neutron, and so on are all different effects of the Paramatma feature of the Lord. As from wood, fire can be manifested, or as butter can be churned out of milk, so also the presence of the Lord as Paramatma can be felt by the process of legitimate hearing and chanting of the transcendental subjects, which are especially treated in the Vedic literatures like the Upanishads and Vedanta. Srimad Bhagavatam is a bona fide explanation of these Vedic literatures. The Lord can be realized through the oral reception of the transcendental message, and that is the only way to experience the transcendental subject. As fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness of man can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. His divine grace, the spiritual master, can kindle the spiritual fire from the wood-like living entity by imparting proper spiritual messages injected through the receptive ear. Therefore, one is required to approach the proper spiritual master with receptive ears only, and thus divine existence is gradually realized. The difference between animality and humanity lies in this process only. A human being can hear properly, whereas an animal cannot. Text 33. Aso gunamaya bhava bhuta sukshmendriyat mahi swanim medishu nirishto bhukte bhuteshu tatgunam. Translation. The super soul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. Just one. There are 8,400,000 species of living beings, beginning from the highest intellectual being, Brahma, down to the insignificant ant, and all of them are enjoying the material world according to the desires of the subtle mind and gross material body. The gross material body is based on the condition of the subtle mind, and the senses are created according to the desire of the living being. The Lord, as Paramatma, helps the living being to get material happiness, because the living being is helpless in all respects in obtaining what he desires. He proposes and the Lord disposes. In another sense, the living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord. They are therefore one with the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the living beings in all varieties of bodies have been claimed by the Lord as his sons. The sufferings and enjoyments of the sons are indirectly the sufferings and enjoyments of the Father. Still, the Father is not in any way affected directly by the suffering and enjoyment of the sons. He is so kind that he constantly remains with the living being as Paramatma, and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness. Text 34. Bhagavat Yesha Satvena Lokan Vailoka Bhavana Lila Vadaran Nirato Devati Naradishu. Translation. Thus the Lord of the universes contains all planets inhabited by demigods, men, and lower animals. Assuming the roles of incarnations, he performs pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. Purport. There are innumerable material universes, and in each and every universe, there are innumerable planets inhabited by different grades of living entities in different modes of nature. The Lord, Vishnu, incarnates himself in each and every one of them, and in each and every type of living society. He manifests his transcendental pastimes amongst them just to create the desire to go back to Godhead. The Lord does not change his original transcendental position, but he appears to be differently manifested according to the particular time, circumstances, and society. Sometimes he incarnates himself or empowers a suitable living being to act for him. But in either case, the purpose is the same. The Lord wants the suffering living beings to go back home, back to Godhead. The happiness which the living beings are hankering for is not to be found within any corner of the innumerable universes and material planets. The eternal happiness which the living being wants is obtainable in the kingdom of God. But the forgetful living beings under the influence of the material modes have no information of the kingdom of God. The Lord therefore comes to propagate the message of the kingdom of God, either personally as an incarnation or through his bona fide representative as the good Son of God. Such incarnations or sons of God are not making propaganda for going back to Godhead only within the human society. Their work is also going on in all types of societies, amongst demigods and those other than human beings. Thus ends the course of first canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Divinity and Divine Service. Now, third chapter. Text 1. Sutta Uvacha Jagrihi Purusham Rupam Bhagavan Mahad Adivi Sambhunam Shudashanatala Adoloka Sushikshaya. Translation. Sutta said, in the beginning of the creation, the Lord first expanded himself in the universal form of the Purusha incarnations and manifested all the ingredients for the material creation. And thus, at first, there was the creation of the 16 principles of material action. This was for the purpose of creating the material universes. Purport. The Bhagavad Gita states that the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna maintains these material universes by extending his plenary expansions. So this Purush form is the confirmation of the same principle. The original personality of Godhead Vasudeva, or Lord Krishna, who is famous as the son of King Vasudeva or King Nanda, is full with all opulences, all potencies, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. A part of his opulence is manifested as impersonal Brahman, and a part of his opulence is manifested as Paramatma. This Purusha feature of the same personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the original Paramatma manifestation of the Lord. There are three Purusha features in the material creation, and this form, who is known as the Karano Daksai Vishnu, is the first of the three. The others are known as the Garbhodaksai Vishnu and the Kirodaksai Vishnu, which we shall know one after another. The innumerable universes are generated from the skin holes of this Karanodaksai Vishnu, and in each one of the universes the Lord enters as Garbhodaksai Vishnu. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also mentioned that the material world is created at certain intervals, and then again destroyed. This creation and destruction is done by the Supreme Will because of the conditioned souls, or the Nitya Baddha living beings. The Nitya Baddha, or the eternally conditioned souls, have the sense of individuality, or ahankar, which dictates to them sense of enjoyment, which they are unable to have constitutionally. The Lord is the only enjoyer, and all others are enjoyed. The living beings are predominated enjoyers, but the eternally conditioned souls, forgetful of this constitutional position, have strong aspiration to enjoy. The chance to enjoy matters given to the conditioned souls in the material world, and side by side, they are given the chance to understand the real constitutional position. Those fortunate living entities who catch the truth and surrender unto the lotus feet of Vasudeva, after many, many births in the material world, join the eternally liberated souls, and thus are allowed to enter the kingdom of Godhead. After such fortunate living entities need not come again within the occasional material creation, but those who cannot catch the constitutional truth are again merged into the Mahatattva at the time of the annihilation of the material creation. When the creation is again set up, this Mahatattva is again let loose. This Mahatattva contains all the ingredients of the material manifestations, including the conditioned souls. Primarily, this Mahatattva is divided into 16 parts, namely the 5 gross material elements and the 11 working instruments or senses. It is like a cloud in the clear sky. In the spiritual sky, the effulgence of Brahman is spread all around, and the whole system is dazzling in spiritual light. The Mahatattva is assembled in some corner of that vast, unlimited spiritual sky. And the part which is thus covered by the Mahatattva is called the material sky. This part of the spiritual sky, called the Mahatattva, is only an insignificant portion of the whole spiritual sky. And within this Mahatattva, there are innumerable universes. All these universes are collectively produced by the Karanadaksai Vishnu, called also the Mahavishnu, who simply throws his glance to impregnate the material sky. Text 2. Yasyam Vasi Sayanasya Yoga Nidram Vitatvatah Nabhiyat Radha Buddha Ashe Brahma Viswa Srijam Pati. Translation. A part of the Purusha lies down within the water of the universe. From the navel lake of his body sprouts a lotus stem, and from the lotus flower atop this stem, Brahma, the master of all engineers in the universe, becomes manifest. Purport. The first Purusha is the Karadaksai Vishnu. From his skin holes, innumerable universes have sprung up. In each and every universe, the Purusha enters as the Garbhodaksai Vishnu. He is lying within the half of the universe which is full with the water of his body. And from the navel of Garbhodaksai Vishnu has sprung the stem of the lotus flower, the birthplace of Brahma, who is the father of all living beings, and the master of all the demigod engineers, engaged in the perfect design and working of the universal order. Within the stem of the lotus, there are 14 divisions of planetary systems, and the earthly planets are situated in the middle. Upwards, there are other better planetary systems, and the topmost system is called Brahmalok or Satyalok. Downwards, from the earthly planetary systems, there are 7 lower planetary systems inhabited by the Asuras and similar other materialistic living beings. From Garbhodaksai Vishnu, there is expansion of the Kirodaksai Vishnu, who is the collective Paramatma of all living beings. He is called Hari, and from him all incarnations within the universe are expanded. Therefore, the conclusion is that the Purusha avatar is manifested in 3 features. The first, the Karadaksai, who creates aggregate material ingredients in the Mahatattva. Second, the Garbhodaksai, who enters into each and every universe. And third, the Kirodaksai Vishnu, who is the Paramatma of every material object, organic or inorganic. One who knows these plenary features of the personality of Godhead knows Godhead properly, and thus the knower becomes free from the material conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease, as it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. In this shlok, the subject matter of Mahavishnu is summarized. The Mahavishnu lies down in some parts of the material sky by his own free will. Thus, he lies on the ocean of Karana, from where he glances over his material nature. And the Mahatattva is at once created. Thus, electrified by the power of the Lord, the material nature at once creates innumerable universes, just as in due course a tree decorates itself with innumerable grown fruits. The seed of the tree is sown by the cultivator, and the tree or creeper in due course becomes manifested with so many fruits. Nothing can take place without a cause. The Karana ocean is therefore called the causal ocean. Karan means causal. We should not foolishly accept the atheistic theory of creation. The description of the atheists is given in the Bhagavad Gita. The atheist does not believe in the Creator, but he cannot give a good theory to explain the creation. Material nature has no power to create without the power of the Purusha, just as a Prakriti or woman cannot produce a child without the connection of a Purusha or a man. The Purusha impregnates and the Prakriti delivers. We should not expect milk from the fleshy bags on the neck of a goat, although they look like bristly nipples. Similarly, we should not expect any creative power from the material ingredients. We must believe in the power of the Purusha, who impregnates Prakriti or nature. Because the Lord wished to lie down in meditation, the material energy created innumerable universes at once. In each of them, the Lord lay down, and thus all the planets and the different paraphernalia were created at once by the will of the Lord. The Lord has unlimited potencies, and thus he can act as he likes by perfect planning, although personally he has nothing to do. No one is greater than or equal to him. That is the verdict of the Vedas. Text 3. Yasya vayaya samsthanai kalpita loka vishtara tadvai bhagavato rupa vishwadham sattvam orojitam. Translation. It is believed that all the universal planetary systems are situated on the extensive body of the Purusha, but he has nothing to do with the created material ingredients. His body is eternally in spiritual existence par excellence. Purport. The conception of the Virat Rupa or Vishwarup of the Supreme Absolute Truth is especially meant for the neophyte who can hardly think of the transcendental form of the personality of Godhead. To him, a form means something of this material world, and therefore an opposite conception of the Absolute is necessary in the beginning to concentrate the mind on the power extension of the Lord. As stated above, the Lord extends his potency in the form of the Mahatattva, which includes all material ingredients. The extension of power by the Lord and the Lord himself, personally, are one in one sense, but at the same time, the Mahatattva is different from the Lord. Therefore, the potency of the Lord and the Lord are simultaneously different and not different. The conception of the Virat Rupa, especially for the impersonalist, is thus not different from the eternal form of the Lord. This eternal form of the Lord exists prior to the creation of the Mahatattva, and it is stressed here that the eternal form of the Lord is par excellence spiritual or transcendental to the modes of material nature. The very same transcendental form of the Lord is manifested by his internal potency, and the formation of his multifarious manifestations of incarnations is always of the same transcendental quality, without any touch of the Mahatattva. Text 4. Pasyantyadorupam adam chakshusha sahasramaluja nanam buddham Sasrabuddha Savanakshi Nashitam Sashramam Mole Ambara Kunda Lodasa. Translation. The devotees with their perfect eyes see the transcendental form of the Purusha who has thousands of legs, thighs, arms, and faces, all extraordinary. In that body, there are thousands of heads, ears, eyes, and noses. They are decorated with thousands of helmets and glowing earrings and are adorned with garlands. Purport. With our present materialized senses, we cannot perceive anything of the transcendental Lord. Our present senses are to be rectified by the process of devotional service, and then the Lord Himself becomes revealed to us. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the transcendental Lord can be perceived only by pure devotional service. So it is confirmed in the Vedas that only devotional service can lead one to the side of the Lord, and that only devotional service can reveal Him. In the Brahma Samhita also it is said that the Lord is always visible to the devotees whose eyes have been anointed with a tinge of devotional service. So, we have to take information of the transcendental form of the Lord from persons who have actually seen Him with perfect eyes, smeared with devotional service. In the material world also, we do not always see things with our own eyes. We sometimes see through the experience of those who have actually seen or done things. If that is the process for experiencing a mundane object, it is more perfectly applicable in matters transcendental. So only with patience and perseverance can we realize the transcendental subject matter regarding the absolute truth and its different forms. He is formless to the neophytes, but he is in transcendental form to the expert servitor. That's 5. Etannanavatarukanam yidhanam vijam apyam yasyam shamsena shrivanti devatiryam naradaya. Translation. This form, the second manifestation of the Purusha, is the source and indestructible seed of multifarious incarnations within the universe. From the particles and portions of this form, different living entities like demigods, men, and others are created. The Purusha, after creating innumerable universes in the Mahatattva, entered in each of them as the second Purusha, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. When he saw that within the universe there was only darkness and space without a resting place, he filled half of the universe with water from his own perspiration and laid himself down on the same water. This water is called Garbhodaka. Then from his navel the stem of the lotus flower sprouted, and on the flower petals the birth of Brahma, or master engineer of the universal plan, took place. Brahma became the engineer of the universe, and the Lord Himself took charge of the maintenance of the universe as Vishnu. Brahma was generated from Rajagun of Prakriti, or the mode of passion in nature, and Vishnu became the Lord of the mode of goodness. Vishnu, being transcendental for all the modes, is always aloof from materialistic affection. This has already been explained. From Brahma, there is Rudra or Shiva, who is in charge of the mode of ignorance or darkness. He destroys the whole creation by the will of the Lord. Therefore, all three, namely Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are incarnations of the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. From Brahma, the other demigods like Daksha, Marichi, Manu, and many others become incarnated to generate living entities within the universe. This Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is glorified in the Vedas in the hymns of Garbhashtuti, which begin with the description of the Lord as having thousands of heads and so on. The Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the Lord of the universe, and although he appears to be lying within the universe, he is always transcendental. This also has already been explained. The Vishnu, who is the plenary portion of the Garvadaksaya Vishnu, is the super soul of the universal life. And he is known as the maintainer of the universe, or Hirodakshaya Vishnu. So the three features of the original Purusa are thus understood. And all the incarnations within the universe are emanations from this Hirodakshaya Vishnu. In different millennia, there are different incarnations and they are innumerable. Although some of them are very prominent, such as Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Ram, Nrsimha, Vaman, and many others. These incarnations are called Leela incarnations. Then there are the qualitative incarnations, such as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who take charge of the different modes of materialization. Lord Vishnu is not different from the personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is in the marginal position between the personality of Godhead and the living entities, or Jivas. Brahma is always a Jiva Tattva. The highest pious living beings, or the greatest devotee of the Lord, is empowered with the potency of the Lord for creation, and he is called Brahma. His power is like the power of the sun, reflected in valuable stones and jewels. When there is no such living being to take charge of the post of Brahma, the Lord himself becomes a Brahma and takes charge of the post. Lord Shiva is not an ordinary living being. He is the plenary portion of the Lord. But because Lord Shiva is in direct touch with material nature, he is not exactly in the same transcendental position as Lord Vishnu. The difference is like that between milk and curd. Curd is nothing but milk, and yet it cannot be used in place of milk. The next incarnations are the Manus. Within 1 day's duration of the life of Brahma, which is calculated by our solar year as 4,300,000 times 1,000 years, there are 14 Manus. Therefore, there are 420 Manus in 1 month of Brahma, and 5,040 Manus in 1 year of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years of his age, and therefore, there are 5,040 times 100, or 504,000 Manus in the duration of Brahma's life. There are innumerable universes with one Brahma in each of them, and all of them are created and annihilated during the breathing time of the Purush. Therefore, one can simply imagine how many millions of Manus there are during one breath of the Purush. The Manus who are prominent within this universe are as follows: Yagya as Swayambhuva Manu, Vibhu as Varochisa Manu, Satyasena as Uttama Manu, Hari as Tamasa Manu, Vaikunta as Vaijyavat Manu, Ajit as Chakshusa Manu, Vaman as Vaivasta Manu. The present age is under the Vaivasata Manu. Sarvabhoma as Savarni Manu, Rishabha as Daksha Savarni Manu, Vishwakshena as Brahma Savarni Manu, Dharmasetu as Dharma Savarni Manu, Sudhama as Buddha Savarni Manu, Yogeshwar as Deva Savarni Manu, and Brihad Manu as Indra Savarni Manu. These are the names of one set of 14 Manus covering 4,300,000,000,000 solar years as described above. Then there are the Yuga avatars, or the incarnations of the millennium. The Yugas are known as Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. The incarnations of each Yuga are of different color. The colors are white, red, black, and yellow. In the Dwapara Yuga, Lord Krishna in black color appeared, and in Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya in yellow color appeared. So all the incarnations of the Lord are mentioned in the revealed scriptures. There is no scope for an impostor to become an incarnation, for an incarnation has been mentioned in the Shastras. An incarnation does not declare himself to be an incarnation of the Lord, but great sages agree by the symptoms mentioned in the revealed scriptures. The features of the incarnation and the particular type of mission which he has to execute are mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Apart from the direct incarnations, there are innumerable empowered incarnations. They are also mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Such incarnations are directly as well as indirectly empowered. When they are directly empowered, they are called incarnations. But when they are indirectly empowered, they are called vibhutis. Directly empowered incarnations are the Kumaras, Narada, Prithu, Shesh, Ananta, and so on. As far as vibhutis are concerned, they are very explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita in the Vibhuti Yoga chapter. And for all these different types of incarnations, the fountainhead is the Gargoyle Vishnu. Text 6. Saeva pratamam deva oma sarvamashritah Vichara vilascharam brahma brahmacharyam akhanditam. Translation. First of all, in the beginning of creation, there were the four unmarried sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, who, being situated in a vow of celibacy, underwent severe austerities for realization of the absolute truth. Purport. The creation of the material world is effective, maintained, and then again annihilated at certain intervals. So there are different names of the creations in terms of the particular types of Brahma, the father of the living beings in the creation. The Kumaras, as above mentioned, appeared in the Kumara creation of the material world. And to teach us the process of Brahman realization, they underwent a severe type of disciplinary action as bachelors. These Kumaras are empowered incarnations. And before executing the severe type of disciplinary actions, all of them became qualified Brahmins. This example suggests that one must first acquire the qualifications of a Brahmin, not simply by birth, but also by quality. And then one can undergo the process of Brahman realization. Text 7. Dvitiyam tu mavayasya rasat kala gatam mahi udarishyam upādata yagyesha sukkaram babu. Translation. The supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices accepted the incarnation of a boar, the second incarnation. And for the welfare of the earth, he lifted the earth from the nether regions of the universe. Purport. The indication is that for each and every incarnation of the personality of Godhead, the particular function executed is also mentioned. There cannot be any incarnation without a particular function, and such functions are always extraordinary. They are impossible for any living being to perform. The incarnation of the boar was to take the earth out of Pluto's region of filthy matter. Picking up something from a filthy place is done by a boar, and the all-powerful personality of Godhead displayed this wonder to the Asuras, who had hidden the earth in such a filthy place. There is nothing impossible for the personality of Godhead, and although he played the part of a boar, by the devotees he is worshipped, staying always in transcendence. Text 8. Vityam rishi sarvam vai devarshitvam upetyasa tattam sattvatam ashasta naishkarmyam karmam yadam. Translation. In the millennium of the rishis, the personality of Godhead accepted the third empowered incarnation in the form of Devarshi Narada, who is a great sage among the demigods. He collected expositions of the Vedas which deal with devotional service and which inspire non-fruitive action. Purport. The great Rishi Nara, which is an empowered incarnation of the personality of Godhead, propagates devotional service all over the universe. All great devotees of the Lord, all over the universe, and in different planets and species of life, are his disciples. Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is also one of his disciples. Narad is the author of Narad Pancharatna, which is the exposition of the Vedas, particularly for the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, Narada Pancharatna trains the karmis, or the fruitive workers, to achieve liberation from the bondage of fruitive work. The conditioned souls are mostly attracted by fruitive work because they want to enjoy life by the sweat of their own brows. The whole universe is full of fruitive workers in all species of life. The fruitive works include all kinds of economic development plans, but the law of nature provides that every action has its resultant reaction, and the performance of the work is bound up by such reactions, good or bad. The reaction of good work is comparative material prosperity, whereas the reaction of bad work is comparative material distress. But material conditions, either in so-called happiness or in so-called distress, are all meant ultimately for distress only. Foolish materialists have no information on how to obtain eternal happiness in the unconditional state. Sri Narad informs these foolish fruitive workers how to realize the reality of happiness. He gives direction to the deceased men of the world, how one's present engagement can lead one to the path of spiritual emancipation. The physician directs the patient to take treated milk in the form of curd for his sufferings from indigestion due to his taking other milk preparations. So the cause of the disease and the remedy of the disease may be the same, but it must be treated by an expert physician like Narada. The Bhagavad Gita also gives the same solution of serving the Lord by the fruits of one's labor. That will lead one to the path of Naishkarmya, or liberation. Text 9. Turye dharma kala sarve narayana vrishi budvatno pasano ketam akkaro dushcharam tapaha. Translation. In the fourth incarnation, the Lord becomes Nara and Narayan, the twin sons of the wife of King Dharma. Thus he undertook severe and exemplary penances to control the senses. Footnote. As King Rishabha advised his sons, tapasya, or voluntary acceptance of penance for realization of the transcendence, is the only duty of the human being. It was so done by the Lord himself in an exemplary manner to teach us. The Lord is very kind to the forgetful souls. He therefore comes himself and leaves behind necessary instructions and also sends his good sons as representatives to call all the conditioned souls back to Godhead. Recently, within the memory of everyone, Lord Chaitanya also appeared for the same purpose, to show special favor to fallen souls of this age of iron industry. The incarnation of Narayan is worshipped still at Badari Narayan on the range of the Himalayas. Text 10. Panchama kapilo nama sedesha kalapitutam pravacha suraye sankyam tattvagrama vidirkayam. Translation. The fifth incarnation named Lord Kapila is foremost among perfected beings. He gave an exposition of the created elements and metaphysics to Asuri Brahmana, for in course of time this knowledge had been lost. Purport. The sum total of the created elements is 24 in all. Each and every one of them is explicitly explained in the system of Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is generally called metaphysics by the European scholars. The etymological meaning of Sankhya is that which explains very lucidly by analysis of the material elements. This was done for the first time by Lord Kapila, who is said herein to be the fifth in the line of incarnations. Jai Shri Gurudev Ki Jai, Shri Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shri Swami Prabhupada and Jai Jai